Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I just want to respond to a few things that have been said, particularly leading up to the motion to not concur, and I think it's relevant for folks. I know there's probably very few people in this room who are trying to decide what to do now, but for those who are, and I think it's important to correct the record. I think we've got in a habit, members, of people saying things, and it's bipartisan, that are not accurate. And I think because Minnesotans are watching, we should be accurate. So, members, I do want to bring a few things up as I've listened to testimony. We started with Representative Detmer, and he was concerned about Minnesota's rank in the business community and where we rank in the rest compared to the rest of the nation. And, you know, we can all pull out somebody's statistics that says one thing or another, but I want to tell you what the governor's staff says about Minnesota's climate. In fact, the governor's staff has published, and anyone can go online and read this, about Minnesota's taxes, that Minnesota's business taxes are lower than those in all but a handful of states. Members, you know, we like to say that the business climate for taxes are so difficult here, and people are characterizing this tax as something that it's just small businesses are going to pay, and that's not accurate either. The governor's staff goes on to talk about that we rank among the 13th lowest taxing states in the nation. And I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read you all the details here, but I will tell you that the assertion that we are 49th out of 50 states is far, far from accurate. In fact, Ernst & Young just released its most current ranking of the states, and we're the 15th lowest taxed state for business. So members, I can't let it be just stated out there that we're 49th. I know that there are political organizations who want us to believe that, but that's just not accurate. Representative Gottwald, I know you said 60% of this tax would be paid by small business, by S-corps, and I listened carefully, and the answer is it's 8%, members. 8%. That's the percentage of returns that have business income in them in this tax. I know Representative Scott talked about the new rich, and that the new rich were those who earn over $120,000. And members, you know, the folks who serve in the tax committee know that to make that income, you're in the top decile in income in this state. Now that might not sound like a big number to you, but over 90% of Minnesotans earn less than that, a lot less than that. So the top decile to me does say you're in the more affluent part of Minnesota. We also know in taxes that that same decile is paying less as a percentage of income in state and local taxes, and not just a little less, a lot less. So, you know, we can use pejoratives here, but the facts are, the deciles in our tax incidence report, and I can pass it out if folks want to see who these Minnesotans are. This is the wealthy. Yes, it is. Members, this new tax, and let's go back to the fact that this is a budget balancing plan that only uses 13% of its solution in revenue. 87% of it is not revenue. We're not spending time talking about the cuts in this bill. Severe, deep, profound cuts that, just like taxes, hurt people. Taxes hurt people. Yes, they do. They do. People don't like them. And cuts hurt people too. And people don't like those either. The balance here isn't 50-50. It's not 50% cuts and 50% revenue, or 75-25. It's 87-13. And so, members, let's talk about that revenue. Who's going to pay that revenue? Okay, here's who it is. 75% of the revenue raised in this bill will fall to those who earn over $500,000. These aren't people whose businesses are going under and having tough times because they're not paying the taxes. They're writing off their losses. They don't have an income liability, and that's our tax code, and that's good. If you're falling on tough times, you're losing money, you're deducting off your expenses, and you're not paying taxes. We're talking about people who aren't just doing well right now, who are doing really well. Really well. 75% of the money raised in this bill comes from people who earn over $500,000. $250,000 a year. That's after, if they're a business owner, they get this incredible tax benefit that, by the way, C corporations do not get, which is they can deduct all their expenses, their costs of their employees, their capital equipment first and not pay any taxes on it at all. This is just the tax on their personal income after that. And again, that's only 8%. 8% of this money raised is coming from S corps. People are acting like this is all the job creators, 8%. So who's paying this? 75% of every dollar raised in this revenue piece is paid by those who are over $500,000. The 22% of it is between people who earn $250,000 and $500,000. 3% of the $435 million being raised in this bill is by people who are earning between $200,000 and $250,000 after exemptions, deductions, subtractions. So members, let's be clear. It's okay to vote against this. That's fine. It's fine. But let's be really clear when we take this vote what we're voting on. We're going to say that we reject this bill that raises an average of $2,800 on folks who earn $500,000 a year. Because you know what? We can't tolerate them chipping in a little bit more. You know, that's okay if that's your position, but you better look at the other side. Because we're going to cut $736 million, $736 million from somebody else, and we're going to cut the schools if we don't pay for the shift. So it is about choices. You know, I appreciate that this is about choices. I voted yesterday or the day before, whatever it was, on the governor's unallotment. I've got the vote right here, and I will note that a handful of Democrats voted for that, and a little bit more than a handful of Republicans. 27 members of 134, and I was one of them, voted for that. That was another choice with no revenue, but that did get through this body. And now here's another choice with a small part of revenue on folks who are doing very well and are paying less as a percentage of their income than everybody else in the Minnesota economy. You know, everybody has this view of who these people are, and I'll tell you, I am fortunate to represent many of them. Many of them. And the idea that one party or the other understands these people as one group, I think is inaccurate. Sure, there's people in every tax bracket that say their taxes are too high, and there's people in every tax bracket who would be happy to pay a little more. And we all get to figure out what is the balance between the cuts. Because the cuts, members, unlike the revenue in this bill, the cuts are regressive, and we know that without a doubt. We are removing means-tested programs that fall disproportionately on the poor. And the revenue, to blend some balance, falls disproportionately on those who are doing well. So members, it's okay for people to vote yes or no on this. But I hate to leave the impression here that somehow this bill is going after job creators and it's just people are just, you know, struggling. I mean, you know, it is not a crime to be rich, and it is not a crime to be poor. They're both okay. It's fine. But we have to be honest about what's going on in this bill. You know, I also want to say Representative Gunther asked, where did all the millionaires go? And, you know, members, you know what state leads the nation in Fortune 500 companies per capita? Minnesota. Number one. Where are all the millionaires? Right here. Members, we heard other people talk. Representative Dean talked about South Dakota. South Dakota. Let's talk about South Dakota. South Dakota. South Dakota has to do what it's doing in its tax code to try to get somebody to come there and start a business. You have to, states have to do these things because they're trying to compete with us. You know, if you're the biggest game in town, other people have to run sales to try to undercut you. You know, if people are worried that we're somehow, South Dakota is somehow beating us here, you know how many Fortune 500 companies they have? None. Zero. This is not, you know, there's a we can talk about their average incomes in South Dakota. Nothing like Minnesota's. You know, someone mentioned Wisconsin. And the fact that, you know, there's nothing else we could, you know, other states don't raise revenue in response to these issues. Wisconsin last year, members, Wisconsin, our biggest historical competitor for business, raised income taxes last year. And you know what? If you live in Wisconsin, you pay higher income taxes than you do in Minnesota. The rate is lower, 7.75. The base is significantly broader, and Wisconsin does not allow all these exemptions and deductions that we do. They have a few, but they're not nearly as generous as we are. For example, they don't have a mortgage deduction. So when members just kind of throw these things out, Wisconsin's income taxes are significantly higher for wealthier folks, not less. And I think we need to be honest about that. Representative Lanning raised the question about, you know, this is all just permanent going forward. The revenue in this bill is 1.5% of the 10 and 11 problem and 1.9% of the 12 and 13 problem. And I raise that, members, because I don't want the impression to be left here that somehow this is just a big tax bill. Representative Broad said this is a big tax bill or something along those lines. This is an 87% budget balancing solution, 13% of which is revenue on folks who mostly 75% of the money comes from people who earn over $500,000, on average having to contribute $2,800 to the problem we face. 87% of this bill, members, is not revenue. It is cutting people in a very serious and personal way. And I'll tell you, as somebody who's had the fortune or misfortune, however people view it, to serve as the tax chair right now, and I want to thank the Speaker for affording me that opportunity. It is such an honor, and I take it so seriously. And I want to tell you, I hate raising taxes. If you know me well, not my party, not the rhetoric, me, I don't like it. I don't like it. And I hate cutting people too. I hate hurting people. I hate dismantling the K-12 system. I don't like this stuff. I also know that every state in the nation is struggling like we are. We're not alone in this. The bulk of this problem happened because of an international recession. It didn't happen because the Democrats were crazy or the Republicans or the governor. We're all in this together. We're in this together. The governor needs to understand we're in this together. The House and the Senate needs to understand that we're in this together. And 13% of a solution to get us out of a $3 billion problem to be revenue on those who can most afford it and have the best deal going in the tax system right now is reasonable. Members, I urge you to support the motion to concur.